Good evening and welcome to the Budget and Finance Committee. Today is Wednesday, June 29, 2022. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Voting members today, the chair of the Budget and Finance Committee, Pavel Payano, Ana Levy, Councilor at Large, Gregory Rosario, Councilor District C, and myself, Giovanni Rodriguez, Councilor District D. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of Act of 2022, this meeting of the Budget and Finance Committee is being conducted both in person and via remote participation. A reminder that a person that would like to listen or to view this meeting while in progress might either attend in person or at the location or any of the above following access locations: the Lawrence City Council's Facebook page and the YouTube Lawrence City Council page. Councilors, can I get a motion to approve the minutes from 6/15/22?
So moved.
There is a motion on the table to approve the minutes for 6/15/22. Can you hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Rosario. The motion has been second. I call the roll call. Councilor Levy,
Yes.
Councilor Rosario,
Yes.
Councilor Payano,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So we have a few items on the agenda tonight. We have item 19822 is the order to expand grants funds, land water conservation fund, grant EOEEA, and the National Park Services for $595,000 for the renovation to the O'Connor Park. Susan Fins is here with us tonight. Thank you, Susan. Can you please go over these funds and the nature of the work that is going to be done at the O'Connor?
Sure. Good evening, Councilors. Sue Fink from the Office of Planning and Development. I reside at 6 Rockwood Lane in Lawrence. So I'm here tonight to request authorization to expend a Land and Water Conservation Fund grant for Phase 3 renovations at O'Connell Park. As I mentioned when I appeared before you with the resolution, the city, in partnership with Groundwork Lawrence, submitted an application to the state for a Land and Water Conservation Fund grant for Phase 3 renovations. This grant is actually through the National Park Service, and we were awarded $595,000. The planned work includes creating an expanded all-abilities playground that makes the space accessible for those with both visible and invisible disabilities. To ensure that everyone has an equal opportunity to participate, the design of the playground will not segregate the play experience. The design will appeal to many senses: visual, auditory, tactile, etc. Another way that the project creatively addresses accessibility challenges is by proposing a land bridge connecting to the second-floor performance space of the bandstand. The bandstand is also going to be renovated during this phase. The total estimated budget for the design, project management, and construction is $1,190,000. The Land and Water Conservation Fund is a reimbursable grant that reimburses 50% of the costs of the project. So this grant will be used in conjunction with CDBG and an allocation of free cash, which I will need to appear before you in the fall for. The project timeline is to finalize design work in FY23 and begin construction also in FY23, and the project must be completed by June 1st of 2024. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Well, so Susan, this is the third portion of the project.
Correct.
On the first two part of the project, what was done? I mean, I know that a lot of people know what was done, but in detail, like, can you remember like what was done through the different grants and the different allocation from the city of Lawrence, and what was done through the gas explosions.
I can't speak on the gas explosion that went through the DPW department, so I can't speak on that portion. But Phase 1 of the renovation was to build ADA accessible pathways. We put in lights along the pathways. We removed the stairwell that was along South Union Street and regraded that lawn area. We also had a park grant for that phase. That was $400,000. And we put in approximately $90,000 of CDBG funds in that phase. Phase 2 was a much more extensive project. That's where we took down the skating rink and we put up the basketball pavilion and the multi-sport court. And we also did some tree work at that phase. Again, we had a park grant of $400,000. Now we're in Phase 2. So we have another park grant for Phase 2. We secured a Housing Choice Capital Improvement Grant for $206,500, which went towards the shade structure. We had approximately $283,000 of capital improvement funds and approximately $393 of community development block grant funds. So in total, we've, including the planned expenditures for Phase 3, it's $3,065,749. $3,065,749.
And I remember that it was a CDB, a free cash as well allocation for this park. It was right around when the housing grant was allocated. What was that amount?
God bless you.
What's on the 300 range?
I don't have that right in front of me. I'd have to look that up. I'm sorry.
Can you look into it and can you please send it to us? I think that I requested when you actually come for that for the second part or the first part of this grant.
Yep.
For the resolution, I believe.
Yep. Yeah, I'm just pulling everything together. I'll get it to you by the end of the week.
Was it free cash, or it was $415,000 of free cash back in 2020? Is that it?
That could be it, yes.
It was $415,000 from free cash transferred for the O'Connell Park back in
So-
November of 2020.
So 235 was for Starro and 180 for
Oh, there it is, yep.
O'Connell. 180,000 for O'Connell. Thank you, Mark.
I kind of remember sometimes those free cash. All right, can you please send us like on a spreadsheet with different allocations, where they're coming from, different grants allocations, and different CDBG's fund that was invested on this project, and the scope of work basically for Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 3.
Sure, I'd be happy to do that.
And you mentioned that we have a limited amount of time to spend this grant.
Correct.
What will happen if we don't spend this amount of money, which is a good amount of money? It's $1 million, almost $1,200,000.
We would not get reimbursed if the project's not completed in the timely fashion.
So on the design aspect of it, I'm assuming that when you do a design, you do like a good scope of the work, projecting the project on different phases. I'm assuming that part of the design has already been done.
That's correct, yes.
And is the bidding process could be expedited to avoid a possible issue in case if the design has been kind of like, almost ready?
We're hoping to go out to bid in early fall. We're that far along in the design.
In terms of the percentage of the design, the project management, and the construction, can you split it up on 3 different phases? I mean, in 3 different categories, so we can see what's going to be for the design, what's going to be for the project management, and what's going to be construction itself?
I can do that, yes.
Thank you. Can you also specify, I mean, we've been having a lot of issues with when it comes to warranties for different projects. I remember that we spent like $265,000 on the soccer field back in 2015-16, and then we were having some problems, and the warranty expired by the time that we actually went up and did some type of claiming. Can you kind of like specify when the different warranties are going to expire on this project
Sure.
for the different phases?
Yep, it's going to take me a little bit more time to pull all this together.
No,
but
I mean, the money part, you send that out, you know,
that I
send
can
that
have
along,
to you
you
by the
have
end of the
that,
week.
and then when you have the other information, send it on phases. Phase 1 is, phase 2
Phase
and
1 will
three.
be the budget.
Yes. There is any questions for these allocations, $595,000 for the corner?
Are you doing the question to us?
Recommendation.
Yes, Councilor De Rosario, go ahead.
I just have a question. Whoever's bidding for this contract, or whoever started the first phase, the second phase, how many actually workers the contractors have there from Lawrence? Do we know those?
What is the ratio between the workers from other cities and towns and compared to the City of Lawrence workers?
I would not know that off the top of my head. I would have to look that up.
Do you present, probably this is going to help Councilor De Rosario on his questioning, do you present the current ordinance that we have in the City of Lawrence that, you know, kind of like, you know, perhaps tell the contractor the percentage of people from Lawrence that they need to hire?
Most of the contractors generally come with the full team. They don't generally hire any additional staff when they come for these projects. But I can certainly tell them that we highly encourage them to hire local, if at all possible.
Yep. Go ahead, Councilor Rosario.
Sorry, Vice Chair. I understand that they come with a full team, but there's an ordinance that, you know, that tell them how many workers need to be from our city. And this need to be, they need to provide that on the bidding process before we get approved to this contract. Lately, what I've been seeing is that every construction that we have and every company that it comes from outside or contractor, I was in an inauguration yesterday, only have 1 worker from Lawrence. And it's happening. We're not enforcing none of that. And hopefully we can look into that. We have an ordinance that actually requests so many workers on those contractors that have been from our city. Thank you, Vice Chair.
Just, yes, thank you. Just only to add something more, can we get like the floor plans of the project, the design?
As soon as it's completed, we'll be happy to share it with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just following up with Councilor Rosario, at the state level, when we use prevailing wages, we also have what they call the minority compliance rule, or not the rule, the GOLD, perhaps. And that established that 16% of the workforce have to be minority when they use the state funds, and 5% of the general budget have to be females. So with a total of 21%, that's the goal that, you know, the state of Massachusetts had every time that they spent money that is a state fund project. The federal government also is in compliance with that regulation, and it's a matter of enforcement sometimes. I personally do those projects. And because they see me as minority, they bring a lot of minority to the job site. When they don't see any other minority, they send a letter saying, "Oh, we didn't find anybody." But it's a matter of enforcement and kind of like, they know the loophole, but we also know that there is a loophole up there, and the effort is not quite there. So if we put it up front, I think that they'll make the effort to comply with that specific goal that the state of Massachusetts had. And the fact that this project will be 50% from money from the city of Lawrence, we also can tell the contractor, look, this is what we have in the city, and this is what the state have, because this is going to be a prevailing wage job. They could definitely comply with those rules. Thank you. Councilors, there is any other questions on this matter? All right, since there is no more questions, I will entertain a motion, any motion that you guys want.
Motion to send to the full council with favor recommendation.
There is a motion on the table. Can I hear a second?
Second.
All right, it's been second. I call the roll call. Councilor De Rosario?
Yes.
Councilor Pañano?
Yes.
Councilor Levy?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you, councilors.
See you next Tuesday. All right, we have item 19922, order to expend grants funds for the Essex County Community Foundation Summer Program. This is $10,000, and Adeline Gonzalez, the Director of Park and Recreation, is here in front of us. Adeline, please take the opportunity to explain to us of the importance of that $10,000 and what you're going to do with it.
Okay. Good afternoon and good evening, councilors. It's very important for the summer program to the expenditure of the $10,000.
Name and address for the record, by the way.
Oh, what happened?
Name and address for the record.
Oh, Adelie Gonzalez, 6 Hillside Avenue.
All right, go ahead. Thank you.
It's very important for the summer program to accept this $10,000 because we use it for anything that has to do with the program. For example, for taking our kids out to field trips, the program does provide field trips. Last year, we were able to do Skateland, we were able to do Canopy Lake, we were able to do Water Country. We went to the state pool, and we also did a field day at the stadium, and we used those funds for those kind of things. If we need money for the buses as well, we also have used those funds in the past from what I've seen from the previous records. And it's something that gives us the opportunity to take our kids that are not fortunate enough to leave the city. The summer program provides that cushion of being able to take them outside of the city to Water Country or Canopy Lake and be able to experience something fun instead of being just in the city. So these funds are all for the summer program that we use it for, and also if we need any kind of equipment, like if we need footballs, if we need any toys, if we need anything that needs to be used at the parks, comes from this grant and these funds.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Gonzalez. Councilors, there is any questions in regard to this item?
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Councilor Levy?
Yes, so the kids are from what age to what age?
So the kids are from 6 to 14 years old.
So that is part of the children from the school, or this is, you say that this is for the summer program?
Mm-hmm. So these are just for kids that are residents of the city of Lawrence.
That are?
Yes. Adeline, if you don't mind, can you go ahead and explain to us like the full spectrum of the program? I mean, when it start, age, who is going to benefit from it, the residents, and all this other information. So, because I know that is on the flyer.
Yep.
So go ahead.
So the summer program runs from July 5th to August 12th, and we service kids from 6 to 14 years of age, and it's for the kids of Lawrence, and it's a totally free program that is provided by the Recreations Department of the City of Lawrence, and it's for the low income of our community. But if you have a child that is in the city, it's totally free. And what they benefit from it is a Monday through Friday program from 9 to 3 o'clock. And the first thing that kids do is we separate them in two parks. So Riverfront Park if you live in South Lawrence, and the North Common if you live in North. Once the kids arrive and they get dropped off by the parents, they're met by our counselors. Depending on how many kids we have, we usually have more kids in the north. So we have 10 staff members in the North Common, and we have 5 at Riverfront in the south. And what these kids do is different kinds of activities. We played outdoor games. We have arts and crafts. Lunch is provided by the school department, so when it's time for lunch, we walk to the former Lawrence High School. In the north and in the south, the kids go to the Weatherby. And after that, on Mondays and Wednesdays, they get to experience the boathouse, which is totally free to our kids. And what they benefit from the boathouse is they get to paddleboard, they get to kayak, they get to watch movies. And if they don't know how to swim, the boathouse does provide to our kids a free membership at the YMCA to learn how to swim in the winter. So those are vouchers that are given to them, as well as, since they're part of our program, throughout the whole summer, our kids could go and use the boathouse with their families on the weekend. And the next thing we do throughout that day is Tuesdays and Thursdays is where we're at the park. Since we're in the boathouse Monday and Wednesday, they're having fun in the water and in the Merrimack. And then on Fridays, we focus on taking them on field trips. And like I mentioned, the field trips are to get them out of the city and have them experience a fun summer. So we'll take them to Canopy Lake Park, Water Country, Cocoa Keys. We are thinking of doing as a treat this year, the last week, taking them to Six Flags and making it a family fun trip. So if you want to go with your child to Six Flags, you're welcome to sign up. The child would go free to Six Flags, and we'll ask for a small, donation of maybe like $10, $15 from family members that do want to attend and go with the child to Six Flags, and those funds will go towards the Recreations Department for next year's program. So that's a little overview of what the program is and some of the things that we do.
So where does family need to go to register?
So we're at the 155 Haber Street at the Senior Center. So if anybody that wants to sign up, they come to the center, and me, Nilsa, we sign you show up, we give you an application, and you can sign up.
So registration are open right now.
Yep. And also registration stays open for the first 2 weeks of the program. So when we start the program on July 5th, we do have a table on both parks for family members that have learned about the program and they still want to sign up. Those tables will be at the parks throughout the week to be able to be signed up.
It is possible to do any activity that you can invite, like it's the city council, that's the mayor, the office, the mayor, or whatever, that's, to be there to the open or to the closing, whatever that it is, that we can see the children, see how they've been doing, how they feel. So, and that's something that sometimes it's very helpful for us just to keep working with you guys. It's not like we are not working on this, but it is good for us to go and see any improvement that they've been doing, how they feel, if the family like it or not. It's possible to include something like maybe by the end of the year or the programs.
Yeah, definitely. We're doing a collaboration, a field day with the Lawrence Police Department, and you guys are going to get an invitation to be part of that field day. And if you have time to stay and play with the kids and be part of that, you guys are welcome to. And you guys are also going to get an invitation for this upcoming Tuesday when the program starts, so you guys could be part of the grand opening of the program this year.
That is great. Thank you.
Yep.
Councilors, there is any other questions in regard to this item? Okay, here none. Councilors, I will entertain a motion on this point.
Motion to send it to the full council with full recommendation.
All right, there is a motion on the table to send it to the full council with a favorable recommendation. Can I hear a second?
Second.
All right, properly second, I call the roll call. Councilor Payano,
Yes.
Councilor Levy,
Yes.
Councilor Rosario,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Thank you, Adelaide. Please show to the next meeting and to discuss the final vote.
Thank you very much.
And by the way, can you please send the flyer to the councilors?
Yeah, I'll send you the flyer tomorrow because we actually changed the day. Last time I know we talked, we were doing 9:30 to 2:30, but we decided that we have enough funds in our account to go from 9 to 3. So you'll get the updated flyer tomorrow.
All right, and can you add on the email the amount of students, high school students that are going to benefit working from this program?
Yep, I can definitely do that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, councilors, the next item is item 20522, order to expand grant fund Essex County Community Foundation for the Greatest Lawrence Summer Program. This is for the amount of $6,000. Janet Abreu, the library director, is here with us. So Janet. Hi,
My apologies, Counselor.
just name and address for the record, please.
Okay, so I'm actually coming in here to request the authorization to expend the following grants from the ECCF.
Yes, name and address for the record, please.
Yep. Janelle Brew, 59 Chippy Lane, Methuen, Mass.
All right, Janet, we have this item for the amount of $6,000 for the summer program that is going to benefit our kids. So can you go ahead and talk to us about the scope of work of that project, that program, how you're going to spend the money, and so far, so on, and date, and what kids are going to benefit from it?
Absolutely. So the program itself is specifically geared to the kids and teens. And we actually had our summer kickoff yesterday, and it was a complete success. We had provided different services and allowed it to also be a place where they can register in person to be part of the summer reading kickoff, which essentially provides a curriculum for the students over the summer so that they can participate and actually get prizes at the end, kind of an incentive. This year, we've been able to also receive a donation for Red Sox tickets, 3 pairs, so that the kids can enjoy if they complete the summer program, the summer reading program. In addition to that, tomorrow I have the exciting privilege to share that we've digitized our forms and how people registered. And we weren't so keen on it in the beginning to see where our community was heading, but luckily enough, we actually had 115 registrations just on our online platform. Tomorrow, we actually have the Animal Adventure, which we are expecting over 200 patrons. That's including kids and family. So it seems like this program is gearing towards the right direction. We have had to, unfortunately, due to resources, limit the amount of people we registered. But moving forward, we hope to do more. The ECCF grant actually was generous enough to give us an additional $1,000 for our summer reading platform this year. So,
All right, so any kids can sign up?
yes, we limit the children from the age, I would say 4, all the way to teenage, and we have different programs for each. So for teens, right now, we still have open registrations. We have the boxing technique courses available. We have Food Explorers signups available as well, and the Writing and Arts camp that's in partnership with Andover Bread Loaf.
So, from what day to what day the program is going to be running, and the time?
I will give you that right now. And for our patrons watching, this is located in our lawrencefreelibrary.org website and as well as our Facebook page. I want to get that to here. So the boxing technique will be July 6th, 13th, 20th, and 25th, and that runs from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. The Food Explorer program is on the 26th of July and is from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. and 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. And the Writing and Arts Camp, sponsored by Andover Bread Loaf, is a 6-day creative writing camp where the youth can elevate their voice and create expression. And that starts on August 2nd to the 4th, and then August 9th to 11th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. And that's the ones that currently right now are still have some space in registration. But the programs themselves, since the kickoff, we have an event essentially happening every other day with the kids in program. We're talking about storytelling, story walk. We have rock painting. We have another food explorers for the younger generation. And then we also have donuts with dad, muffins with mom. We're just taking advantage of any programs that we can share with them. So all that is outlined with dates and times specifically on our lawrencefreelibrary.org website and our social media platform. And of course, if they come visit us at the library at 51 Lawrence Street.
So essentially, is the kid have to, can the kids can do, are they able to do this online, or they have to be present at the library?
Well, the thing is that we're trying to pivot about letting everyone know that it's time to come back. The same way the schools are doing it, the same way works are going. We do have options in take-home bags. Like the Food Explorer has a take-home bag. We do give you kits that if you cannot participate inside the library that you can take home. But this summer reading and kickoff and this initiative was to get the kids back in the library and their parents back in the library. So right now, a lot of these programs are based upon using the space in the library, like our meeting rooms and the auditorium, and as well as the children's room.
Councilors, there's any questions in regard to this item?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Councilor Levy.
Do you have any flyer or information that pass around that you can send it to us?
Absolutely. I would be more than happy to.
Yeah, thank you. But this is great. Let me say, I think so that yes, we need to get back to have the children coming to the library again.
Yeah, it's refreshing. It's morale boosting. I think it really shows where the community has pivoted after facing a pandemic, and I think it's important now more than ever to continue to invest those resources on our children. And if we can be that bridge to kind of create that between the school systems and the city, then we will continue to do so.
Yes, thank you.
So thank you.
Any other questions, councilors? Okay, here no questions. I will entertain a motion right now.
To send it to the full council with full recommendation?
All right, there is a motion on the table. Can I hear a second? I call the roll call. Councilor Payano. I'll go back to Councilor Payano. Councilor Rosario.
Yes.
Councilor Levy.
Yes.
And I vote yes. Thank you so much. And I see you next Tuesday.
Thank you, council members. Have a good day.
All right, councilors, can I get a motion to table item 211 and 212?
So move.
There's a motion to table, properly second. I call the roll call. Councilor Payano.
Yes.
Councilor Rosario.
Yes.
Councilor Levy.
Yes.
And I vote yes. Thank you. No problem. So now we have item 21422, which is the 5 years financial forecast and use guidance and assumptions by our CAFO, Mark Ianello. Name and address for the record, please.
Mark Ianello, 200 Common Street here in Lawrence. Councilors, this is the 5-year forecast. Let me just get it in front of me. It's the 5-year forecast that I briefly reviewed with the council last week. So just some of the highlights of the 5-year forecast. This is a 5-year forecast for FY23 through FY27. And FY23, in FY23, there is no Prop 2.5 tax increase. New growth is projected at 1.3 million. And for FY24 to FY27 of the projection, It is forecasted with a 2.5% tax increase, and new growth is projected at 1.2 million for each of the years. The FY23 we have, you can see on the summary page, and I'll
Diana,
review that in a minute. Yep.
Can you repeat the last portion you just said?
Sure. The FY24 to FY27 does include a 2.5% increase, and the new growth projection is projected at 1.2 million. In FY23, you'll note that, and I'll review it in a moment on the summary page, but there's a collective bargaining impact of $1 million based on a 2% pay increase for the unions. Any higher negotiations, any higher than 2% will obviously require a additional free cash supplement. The FY24 to 27 also contains a 2% projected pay increase. In FY23, the budget was balanced, as you recall last week, with roughly 4.9 million of free cash, which is primarily for the debt service on the Oliver Police and the Leahy School, and also because there's no tax increase for FY23. The projection does not include any free cash supplement for the forecasted years 24 to 27. And you'll note the deficits are indicated on the summary page, which I'll review in just a moment. Something that's kind of major is our excess tax levy capacity is 8.4 million, and with the vote last week, without a tax increase, that excess levy capacity would then be increased to 10.6 million. That's a positive note when we speak.
You mean 10.6 million, and what's the kind of like in a percentage-wise? How much is that?
Well, 10.6 million on a tax levy of roughly, tax levy is 82 million. So that's, it's a decent percentage. But the importance of the 10.6 million, or increasing from 8.4 to 8.6, is somewhat favorable from the ratings agencies, because it does insulate us if property values do decrease. We have some excess levy capacity that will not cause us to not be able to raise taxes, which is what can happen when property values decline. So that is 10.6 million that is now set aside for in excess tax levy capacity. Revenues, just briefly, the local receipts are generally projected at 2%. I'll review that in a second. The cherry sheet aid for unrestricted local government aid, that was projected in the out years at 2%. Our net school spending projections are using a 2.5%, and the city's share increasing 6%, which reflects the 5-year average of the city's share. Expenditures and the projections for expenditures, we have no personal service increases in the departmental budget, but they're isolated down below on the line designated as collective bargaining impact. I'll review in a second. And then just the other thing that we projected was, other than personal services, for all of the departments are projected at a 2.5% increase, except for DPW, which we have a 4.5% increase because they have trash and disposal escalations in their budget, along with energy costs. So we put a projection of 4.5% under those line items. So if I could just go briefly, again, what is before you, and the most important page is on top of the page, it says summary of projected general fund revenues and expenditures. That's the city's revenues and expenditures rolled up on one page for the years 23 through 27. And if you just follow FY23, you have the revenues at the top of I broke down the revenues just in the 4 line items, which is very, very rolled up, very general. But there's property tax levy, state aid cherry sheet, estimated local receipts, and other available funds, which are, in this particular case, are generally free cash and some other reserves or some other accounts. expenditures are rolled up into the functional category. General government, public safety, education, public works, human services, library. Debt service, deficit note is identified separately so that people could see what our debt service on the deficit notes from Chapter 58 are still hanging with us. Intergovernmental expenditures are generally cherry sheet estimates, cherry sheet charges, I should say. Fixed costs and benefits such as pensions and benefits, health insurance for our employees. Risk management is just property insurance and auto insurance. Other amounts to be raised are just some funds for the from the enterprise fund supporting the general fund, and then there's some free cash and other financing uses. And on the bottom of this page, you can see that for FY23, the revenues exceed the expenses by $1 million, and that $1 million will be is projected for the collective bargaining impact because there are no pay increases in each of the departmental budgets. It's isolated down here at the bottom so that we can so the city can see what the impact of collective bargaining is annually throughout the forecast period. So in FY23, our collective bargaining impact is $1 million, and then in FY24, it increases to 1.8 million, and so on through the forecast period. In 2027, that'll be $4.4 million. And I just want to point out, and obviously in FY23, we balanced our budget, but in FY24, we are unbalanced by the negative that you'll see on the very bottom line. In FY24, we're showing a negative of expenditures over our revenues of $5 million, and we're showing $4 million in 25, $3.7 million in 26, and $3.3 million in 27. And that's without a free cash transfer to help with the a debt service that's expected on the Oliver and the Leahy. The next page is a detail of those revenue, those four lines of revenue that I rolled up on the summary page. The next page has revenue projections, and the four categories are detailed. So you can see the first one is property tax levy, and I show the property tax levy calculation in FY23, and you can see that I highlighted in yellow, the percentage tax increase is 0, so it's illustrated. But you can see the prior year levy is the calculation for the tax levy is you take the prior year tax levy, increase it by 2.5%, which is allowed. You're allowed to add new growth. Comes to a tax levy limit total is identified, and that's $93.2 million. And in this particular case, we're subtracting the excess levy capacity of $10.6 million, and $82 million will be our tax levy for FY23, the budget that just passed. And you can see in my summary page, I had state aid cherry sheet of $271 million. It's detailed here. Out of the $271.9 million in cherry sheet aid, $240.1 million is related to Chapter 70, and charter tuition reimbursement is another $8 million. So roughly $250 million of the $270 million is related to the school department in Chapter 70 aid. You can see the unrestricted general government aid, which is the large item in the cherry sheet, which helps the city side of the operations. That's where I projected a 2% increase in the out period, but in FY23, that number's $22.2 million. Local receipts are the next section, the third section, and that totals $14.4 million. And you can see the largest item in that category is the detail is motor vehicle excise of $6.1 million, and that's projected to increase 2% in the out years. And then the other items such as meals tax, room excise tax, other penalties and interest on taxes that we collect, and some of the other local receipts. One of the larger ones are departmental receipts, other charges for services identified here at $1.9 million. That's where the building permits and other departmental revenues are included. There's also licenses and permits. That's the licenses and permits, I'm sorry. The other charges for services are from the other departments besides the licenses and permits. I don't have my list in front of me, but those are departmental revenues. Fines and forfeits are the ticketing, parking ticketing, and other ticketing functions that the city collects. Investment income is very low because the interest income has been so low. We were earning over $1 million a year in interest income or investment income, but the rates have been so low the last year, we've been only earning 12 to 13 basis points. Thankfully, with recently that those rates are starting to rise, so that's going to be, I do expect us to far exceed the $175,000 that we estimate this year. Medicaid reimbursement is estimated here at $675,000, and miscellaneous recurring revenues at $233,000. The next section is the available funds and other financing sources, and this is where you can see $4,860,000 is the free cash to support the general operating budget. We also have the council transferred money from for the OPEB trust, the compensated absence reserve fund, the workers' comp claim reserve fund, and the injured in line of duty claim fund. And then the last item is transfer from the enterprise funds for the indirect costs that the city incurs. We charge the enterprise funds, the water, sewer, the airport, and the parking enterprise for their share of the city's operating costs for paying their bills and all that. So that was $890,000 for FY23. And those have all been projected out through the FY27 forecast period. On the next 2 pages are the details of the expenditures. Again, on the summary page, the expenditures were rolled up into approximately 10 to 15 lines. So there's 2 pages which breaks out the detail of those general categories. So in general government is obviously all the departments, administrative departments of the city, such as the council, the mayor, the finance, and other departments. And that was we just break that down into what are the personal service costs and then the other expenses of those departments. And again, those expenses I projected at 2.5%. The next section is public safety, which is comprised of the police, the fire, and the inspectional services division. They total $32.2 million in total. That the detail for personnel and other than personnel costs are detailed here. Education is the next line item. The education is totals $233 million, which is generally comprised of the school department budget, the school transportation, and the Greater Lawrence Regional School Assessment, Greater Lawrence Technical School Regional School Assessment, and our share of that, of their budget, is $3.147 million. DPW is broken out next, along with followed by Human Services, which is basically the Council on Aging and the Veteran Service Department. The library is next, and then the next category is the debt service and / capital plan, and that's the we just break that down into the existing school debt service and the existing general government debt service, and you can see the debt service that's outstanding today is roughly $13 million and decreases down to $12 million in 2027. At the top of the next page of expenditures are the deficit notes. We're in FY23, we were going to, our deficit debt service on our deficit notes is $1.7 million, and that increases to $1.9 million in 2027. We have approximately 9 years remaining on the deficit notes. Next is the state assessments. Those are cherry sheet assessments, the largest of which is the charter and choice sending tuition. Charter school sending tuition is $36.9 million. And then there's The rest of them are delineated. Air pollution is something the state charges us for on our cherry sheet. Registry of motor vehicle non-renewal surcharges is a cherry sheet item. That's how the state reimburses itself. And the regional transit bus, that's also paid for, or the state takes cherry sheet money from us. Basically, that's a cherry sheet assessment. That's how they get money to the MVRTA. Special education has a slight number of 83,000. School choice, as I said, is 628, and the charter school is 36.7 million. Employment benefits are detailed below, again, in greater detail. It includes unemployment, Medicare, retirement, non-contributory retirement, ILD, workers' comp and compensated absences, group insurance commission, and or health insurance for our city employees, and dental insurance are the largest line items there. And that equals 29 million, which is projected to increase to 33.4 million over the forecast period. And you can see highlighted in yellow are the projection percentage increases which we used. I used a 5% for unemployment, 7% for Medicare, because we have been, that's the averages that we've been seeing. The retirement, according to our amortization schedule with the retirement board, to be fully funded by 2036. That increases 3.67% per their actuarial schedule. The other increases are at 3.5% and 2% respectively. Risk management, it just meant is detailed here: property insurance and auto insurance. We have other amounts to be raised, which are cherry sheet offsets, and in this case, abatements and exemptions or overlay, which the assessors think we need for the FY23 tax levy. Free cash expenditures are detailed below. There's OPEB, as I mentioned, the OPEB, the compensated absence of workers' comp reserve, and the ILD reserve. And then the other items at the bottom of miscellaneous and other financing uses are, there's a slight intergovernmental payment required for the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission. We owe the State Retirement Board $75,000 for being overpaid for the non-contributory pensions over the last several years. We'll be paying that over a 20-year period. And you can see in the forecast period, we have 3 more years paying $75,000. Then we'll be paying 5 years at $120,000. Then there's another remaining 5 years. I believe it's $150,000 for the last 5 years. But we're repaying the state over a 20-year period with no interest, thankfully. But it is something we have to pay back. And then the Chapter 58 reserve, other financing uses, includes the Chapter 58 reserve of $1.2 million, increasing to $1.4 million. That's the basically the pay-go capital that we have to set aside. And in accordance with Chapter 58, we have to set aside 2.5% of our prior year's tax levy and use it for pay-go capital items. So that is detailed here and illustrated here. And then the last one is the Chapter 41 Fiscal Stability Reserve. That's Chapter 41 of the Acts of 1990, and we're required to have 2.5% of the prior year's general government expenditures as detailed on the previous year's tax recapitulation sheet. So that number that number is approximately $5 million, and each year that 2.5% of tax levy obviously increases a little bit. So this is the adjustment that's required to maintain the statutory requirement. So we need $251,000 in FY23, and it increases to actually it decreases down to 146 based on our projections in FY27. So those are the detailed numbers, and in the report that's behind it, it has the user's guide and assumptions, and there's a table of contents, and this contains all the narrative of what I just explained just a moment ago, and the assumptions, how we arrived at the assumptions, and broken down into the general categories that are detailed on the projection. So on page 4, for example, is a tax levy, and also state cherry sheet is also illustrated as to how it's derived, and a little bit of background about how the state distributes it. The unrestricted general government aid is detailed on page 6, and that illustrates the 2% projection, which I just indicated, and so on for the other revenue line items. And on page 8 begins the expenditure projections and how I determined those expenditures and how I derived at those projected expenditures. And detailed on page 8 is the net school spending calculation, along with all the other categories in the remaining pages. So that's the 5-year forecast in a nutshell. I could spend 10 hours, or as I think I just spent 10 or 15 minutes. That's it in a nutshell. Those are the highlights. I think it's the most important page is the summary page, and it does show the very bottom line showing the FY24 through FY27. We do have projected deficits. Primarily, those deficits are because of the increase in debt service for the, again, the Oliver School, the Leahy School, and the police station are some projects that when I came before the council with the bond authorization, I did make sure the council was aware that we can do these projects without a tax levy, but it will require an planned use of free cash to subsidize the general fund debt without a tax increase. So that's the forecast in a nutshell.
Councilor, there is any questions in regard to this item?
Yes,
Councilor Levy.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the information. I think so this is great, so that people knows where we are right now in the next 5 years. So, but how accurate we are with this projection?
How accurate, you mean?
Yes.
Well, it's just a projection. And again, the accuracy depends on the what happens in the future. We can't predict interest rates, for example. Interest rates are rising, so again, some of our expenses are going to go up. I have a 2% or 2.5% projection in most of the expenditure line items for most of the departments. I increased the trash projections 4.5%. Is that, could they be higher? I mean, trash has, we have a contract only, we have a 5-year contract. I think we're probably in year 3 of the disposal contract. So there's only a couple years left, and then we'll go out to bid again, and I don't know what those estimates will come in at. So they're best guesses, but it is not, that's why it's called a projection or forecast. It's not with any certainty. It's with, and I've shared with you in the detail narrative of the document what projections I used and why I used them. For example, some of like the net school spending, the city's match, when we get $250 million from the state for Chapter 70 aid, the city has to match approximately $13 million of city funds with that. And that's part of a formula the state calculates, part of the Chapter 70 formula requires that the state give us X amount of our foundation budget, and the city has to contribute a certain amount to receive that full foundation. And so our obligation is roughly $13 million this year. And that amount over the last several years, I think I used a 5-year average, has been increasing approximately 6% per year. So in my projection, I used the city's match of $13 million will increase 6% per year in the forecast period. So they're somewhat educated guesses. Same thing with the projected revenues that I've projected for local receipts. I look back at the 5-year average of what were our local receipts, so we could project going forward 5 years. What is it likely? What are the likely increases for those? What increases will the city see in the out years for those specific revenue categories? So it's an educated guess, but it is just again an estimate, and it's not it won't be set in stone until the actuals come in.
So my question came because I just remember that last year we projected a tax increase. We were able this year to make a budget, without no tax increase.
Yep.
So it is possible that we can get a comparison for the last 5 years with the projection.
Oh, you mean to see the last 5 years? Oh, we do have, have the forecast. This is the 5th or 6th year or 7th year of the forecast. So we do have these going back 5 years at least.
Well, but just to compare, how we've been doing with those projections that we've been doing every year, how we've been doing every year with this, what we've been projecting.
Well, yeah, and we can take a look at that. The one thing I can tell you is that the last 5 years, we've been able to be very conservative with our revenues because in most of the years we did have a tax increase. The years where we didn't have a tax increase, obviously it puts pressure on the budget. The issue for these 5 years are really the additional debt service that the city is going to ensue because of the 3 capital projects which I just mentioned. Those are substantial capital improvements without a tax increase, which is pretty unheard of. So the city's in a pretty good position to be able to do that without a tax increase, but it will require a use of reserve. So the next 5 years, we're going to have deficits, if you will, just as I'm projecting here. In the previous 5 years, without that extended or increased debt service, we had operating surpluses in each of those years. So we do have a planned use of free cash, which is going to be needed for these capital improvement projects, but it's not required for operating purposes. For operating purposes, the revenues that we take in should offset the normal expenditures of the city, excluding these 3 major projects, which are extraordinary for the city, and the extraordinary cost of them is $130 million for the Oliver School, $103 million for the Leahy School, and the police station at roughly $59 million. So those are substantial projects.
Yeah, but last year we projected a deficit for this year, and we were able to, how can I say, just to make sure, that we didn't have the increase. That's why we submitted the proposition, for people to vote, just to increase to whatever, the maximum for taxes for this year. And I'm glad that the proposition didn't pass, but we were able to solve the problem, no increase taxes this year, That is why I would like to see how accurate we are for the last 5 years with those projections that we've been doing with this projection that's right now we are submitting new.
Well, we could
It's
overlay.
just only to figure it out, and
I mean,
see.
just to go back to FY22, where we're just finishing FY22 now. In FY22, we had a projection, which obviously was a balanced budget. We have to balance our budget every year. So FY22 had a balanced budget. And in the forecast last year, I'm sure I had a deficit showing for FY23. And our deficit for FY23 is we were able to recover it. We have we had to use almost $5 million of free cash, but I think the deficit projected last year is probably less than what we actually have had in this FY23. Only because when we did the projection last year, I don't think we had that second Leahy School wasn't approved yet, so we didn't have a projection for the increased debt service. So I'm sure that the deficit that we're showing for that we showed for FY23 last year is less than what we're actually using in FY23 this year.
So means that this projection could change next year.
This projection does have the estimates for all the debt service projected going out through '27, so I've accounted for that. But if we were to do another capital project, which I would not encourage the city to do, we don't have, we've got to wait a while before we do another school or another large capital project like we just did. But, we would not be able to do it. But I do have the projections for all the debt service for all these schools, for the schools and the police station in the projections here. So I don't expect any surprises in that regard. We should be able to manage this budget. We just, as I indicated to the council, when we approve the bond authorizations, it will require, without a tax increase anyway, will require a use of free cash. And if I could just quickly comment on the excess tax levy capacity, which is now over 10 million. We also had an excess tax levy capacity of approximately 5 million in 2003 or 4 or 5, one of those years. And in the mid-2000s, that excess tax levy capacity was used up, meaning they increased taxes 2.5% and the extra amount to balance those city budgets. And as we all know, and by 2010, they still couldn't balance a budget, and that's why the state had to provide some bailout legislation and allow us to borrow $27.4 million to pay off all our debts and balance our budget. And that's why we have all these different practices and policies that we do today. We're a whole different city than we were in 2010. We're doing projections like this just to give the idea behind this projection is to give the mayor and the city councils an idea of where the city's headed, so you can see the pitfalls or the shortfalls. So I've identified those for you, our shortfalls or our biggest problems in the out years will be collective bargaining and managing this debt service, managing our free cash. And as long as we do continue to do the job that we have over the last 10 years, and we manage departmental budgets each year, we should be, this projection should be somewhat accurate.
So one of the increase that I can see in here is like the expenses for human services.
Yep.
Like I see that all of the, practically everything is like a 2.5, but the human service is 4.5.
Again, I think that's the, I put a projection in there at 4.5%. Because of that includes the veteran service payments, the veterans payments. So we have been really low. Just a few years ago, we had, that line item was almost $900,000, and now it's down to, I think it's about $350,000. I think is what we had in the budget this year. So just to, for that purpose, I used a 4.5% projection for that line item, just in case. If the unemployment has risen a little bit and both some of our veterans be looking for the city, I increased that projection a little bit.
A little bit higher. No more question for now, but please, if you can send like the comparison in between, like I asked you for.
For the prior year projection, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
With this projection, just to see in reality, how accurate we are when we do those kind of projections.
Thank you, Councilor Levy.
Thank
Is there any other questions for this 5-year forecast? All right, I have a few questions. In regard to the projections for the salary increase that we were discussing, how that projection look like in compared to today's on the operational budget in the different salaries that we have today?
Well, and again, that's the, I've isolated it on the summary page. That's the dollar value on the collective bargaining impact line, the dollar value of the giving raises to city employees. In FY '23, we have in this budget $1 million. We haven't settled the contracts yet, but hopefully we can settle them all for $1 million. If we settle for, if the settlements are more than this million, I'll be back down to the council requesting transfer from reserves to pay for those those collective bargaining increases. And as I indicated in my comments, the collective bargaining, I used a 2% COLA, cost of living increase, if you will, in this projection. So if we end up with giving cost of living increases higher than that, then the deficits will increase accordingly. But I used a 2% projection for all of the years of this forecast, and you can see that's $1 million for 23. It's 1.8 million in 24 because it's 2 years worth of raises, and in 25, 26, 27, you can see the numbers. It increases to 4.4 million in 2027.
All right. I actually, during the budget discussion, I actually asked you for the stipend portion for one specific office, and I haven't received that yet. Are you still working on that?
I'm sorry, the mayor's office stipends you wanted.
For the fiscal year 2022 and fiscal year 2023?
Sorry, yeah. Oh, you want it for 2 years?
Yes, please.
Okay, yep.
All right, thank
See if I
you.
can get the payroll director. to
Councilors,
get
there
that.
is any other questions in regard to this item?
Oh, by the way, councilors, this doesn't require a vote, it's just informational purposes only. This doesn't require any action by the city council, it's informational purposes only, so it's not like I need your approval or anything like that, but as a committee, you can send it back to the full council. But, yeah,
Yep.
but there's no action required.
This is a lot of important information that we have received here. I'm wondering to see if we can have it in a format that could be more presentable to the public in case that they want to see it. Can you prepare a projection PowerPoint for the next city council meeting for this?
Well, yeah, I
Is
could. The forecast itself, we do place it on the website once it's shared with the council. So I'll get this on the website shortly. But I can do a short PowerPoint of the highlights of it as I illustrated in my opening remarks.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of information that you provide to us in a summary way. Visualizing will help a lot.
Yep.
So, councilors, can I get a motion to send this as a committee report to the full council?
So move.
All right, there is a motion on the table, properly seconded by Councilor De Rosario. I call the question. Councilor De Rosario?
Yes.
Councilor Levy?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Thank you so much, Mr. Cuff. Now we are at the end of this agenda. There is any item from the table matters that we would like to speak tonight, councilors?
No.
All right, can I get a motion? Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
All right, there is a motion on the table to adjourn, properly seconded by Councilor Rosario. I call the question. Councilor Rosario? Yes. Councilor Levy?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Thank you so much. Good night, everybody.
Good night.